Chapter 2. The hills and the ridges now lay behind. This was a plain, the only such level stretch of land in this country. If you strained your eyes and peered into the misty distance, you could see the land of Okafi. It was all peaceful on this plain, which was said to have been a field of battle once long ago. A few cattle pulled and mauled the grass while others lay down looking vacantly into space, chewing. Suddenly, two boys emerged from the bush. They began to fight. One was tall, and his unusually long neck and limbs made him appear much older than he really was. He was Kamau, son of Kabonyi from Makuyu. The other, Kinothia, was shorter with surprisingly strong muscles. His slow, wide eyes well matched his smooth forehead. He lived with his uncle at a village beyond the two ridges away from Makuyu. His father had died earlier. At first the boys fought with the sticks they had gone to fetch from the bush. The green sticks caught each other in mid-air several times and were soon in pieces. The boys threw them away, and one piece touched a cow, which stood up quickly, frightened. It moved a few paces from the struggling pair, waking two others on the way. Then it looked in the opposite direction, unconcerned with the fight. Kamau and Kinothia were now wrestling. Their arms were interlocked, and the two boys went round and round without either getting the better of the other. Kinothia tried to lift Kamau off the ground and then trap him with his right leg. The attempt always failed. Kamau has his struggles too. Though not usually voluble, today he was eloquent with threats. "You will know who I am," he warned, at the same time using his right knee to hit Kinothia's stomach. "Cow!" cried Kinothia in pain. "Hyena!" "Even you!" Kinothia hissed back. Kinothia appeared much more collected, and an observer would have thought that he would win. But he tripped over a sharp stone, and he was now laying prostrate on his stomach. Kamau bent over him and pinned Kinothia's hands behind his head. His face was grim and contorted as he used his head to dig into Kinothia's face, making his nose bleed. The boy, underneath Kamau's knees, felt pain. He thrust his legs in the air, hoping to catch Kamau by the neck and between the legs. Blows fell on him, and he was bewildered, not knowing when and where the next blow would follow. Two cows that had moved away turned their heads and watched the struggle for a while. Then they bent their heads, thrusting out their tongues to pull and maul the grass like the others. Just then, another boy came running from a group of cows a distance away. "Stop fighting!" he shouted breathlessly as he stood near the pair. Kamau stopped, but he still sat on Kinothia. "Why are you fighting?" "He called me names," answered Kamau. "He is a liar. He laughed at me because my father died poor, and he called my father a convert to the white man. He is, you beggar, white man's slave. You. Kamau became furious. He began to pinch Kinothia. Kinothia looked appealingly to the other boy. "Please stop this, Kamau. Didn't we swear that we of the hills were comrades?" He felt helpless. It was 3 days earlier that they had sworn to be brothers. "What do I care about comrades who insult my father?" asked Kamau. "I will do it again," retorted Kinothia between tears. "Do now." "I will. Try." Kamau and Kinothia began to struggle. The boy felt an irresistible urge to fall on Kamau. He pulled a blade of grass and began to chew it quickly, his eyes dilated with rage and fear. "Kamau!" he burst out. The tremor in the boy's voice sent a quiver of fear up Kamau. He quickly looked up and met the burning eyes gazing at him. Meekly, he obeyed the unspoken command, but his face went a shade darker than it normally was. He slunk away, feeling humiliated and hating himself for submitting. Kinothia stood up unsteadily and looked gratefully at the boy. The boy kept on lowering his face, gazing at the same spot. The feeling of pride and triumph he had suddenly felt at seeing Kamau obey him had as suddenly subsided to one of regret at having done that to him. Perhaps it might have felt better if Kamau had stuck it out and he had to use force to remove him. The boy's name was Wayaki, the only son of Shege. He was quite young, not of Kamau or Kinoria's age. He had not even gone through his second birth. Wayaki was, however, already tall for his age. He had a well-built athletic body. His hair was tough and dry with kinks that finished in a clear outline of the forehead. Just above the left eye was a slightly carved scar. He had got it from a wild goat. The goat had run after one of the herd's boy. Seeing this, Wayaki had to take a stick and run after the goat, shouting. The goat turned on him and jabbed him with its horns, tearing the flesh to the bone. His father arrived in time to save him. That was a long while ago. The wound had healed, leaving him a hero among the boys, although he had run after the goat for sheer fun and enjoyment of the scene. That, however, was not the sole reason why the other boys, young and old, promptly followed him. Shege, his father, was a well-known elder in Kameno. He had only one wife who had bore him, many daughters, but only one son. The other two wives had died during the Great Famine without any children. The famine had been preceded by a very rich harvest. Then locusts and worms and a long drought came to bring death to many. Shege had barely survived. His daughters were now well married apart from one who had died earlier. The other elders feared and respected him, for he knew more than any other person the ways of the land and the hidden things of the tribe. He knew the meaning of every ritual and every sign. So he was at the head of every important ceremony. Many stories ran around him. Some people said that he had the gift of magic. Others said that he was a seer and Murungu often spoke to him. And so they said that he could see visions of the future like Motivational, who a long time back prophesied the invasion of the Rukoyo country by the white man. Some even said that Shege was actually related to Mogo. Nobody knew this for sure. Shege himself claimed nothing. Ever since he had warned the people against Syriana Missionary Center, and they had refused to hear his voice, he had talked little, keeping all thoughts to himself. Shege had told the people of the regions what happened in Muranga, Nyeri, and Kiambu. He told them of Tumutumu, Yukoyo, Limuru, and Kejabe. They doubted his voice, saying, "How do you know? See them, the butterflies. Butterflies? You have never left the ridges. They are there beyond the ridges, putting up many houses, and some taking the land. How could you see the light beyond? Fools, fools," he muttered to himself in despair. Nairobi was already flourishing, and the railway was moving across the country in the land beyond where not many from the ridges had been. And they lowered their voices and whispered together, "The white man cannot speak the language of the hills and knows not the ways of the land." But the white man had come to Syriana, and Joshua and Kabonyi had been converted. They had abandoned the way of the ridges and followed the new faith. Still, the people shrugged their shoulders and went on with their work, whispering, "Who from the outside can make his way into the hills?" Shege had been young, now he was growing old. However, he remembered something in his old age. A light shone in his eyes, a flicker of hope. He would guard it and divulge the knowledge to none but the right one. The boys did not want to be caught by the darkness. They collected their cattle together and drove them home. Many paths ran through the forest to various huts scattered over the ridges. Unless you were careful, you would easily lose your way in the hills. One part of the forest looked so much like another, but the boys, born and brought up in the hills, knew the paths. Darkness was settling when Wayaki reached home. Shege had been waiting for him. He called Wayaki to his dingira, the man's hut. He sat on a stool leaning against the central pole. A fire burnt low, and when Wayaki entered and stood close to the door, Shege took a stick lying near him and poked the fire slowly. Sparks flew upwards in quick successions. "Why do you come home with darkness?" Shege at last asked. Without raising his head, he spat on the floor. He took the cattle to the plains. "The plains?" "Yes, father." After a small silence, "That is far to go," he said. Wayaki kept quiet. He was never at ease in front of his father. "Danger lurks in the darkness." "Yes, father." Again, Wayaki was uneasy. He darted a quick glance at the door. His father had not yet looked up. "Who showed you the way?" "I know all the ways in the ridges," he said proudly to impress the father he secretly feared. Besides this, Wayaki did not like to be thought young, for he considered himself able to make decisions like a man. Shege looked at his son. He contemplated him for a while. Wayaki tried to puzzle what his father was thinking, but suddenly it occurred to him that his father had been anxious and feared for him. A feeling of pride warmed his heart, and he wondered if the other boys could boast of such a father. "You have not eaten." There was a softness in Shege's voice. "I've just come. Go then and get your mother to give you something to put in your mouth. You must be hungry." But as he was about to go out, his father called him back. Wayaki now trembled a little. "Remember, tomorrow is the day of your second bath." "Yes, father." "Do not forget," Shege said with an unnecessary emphasis. Wayaki ran to his mother's heart. How could he forget such an event? End of chapter 2.